Welcome back to Born for This Stories, where we speak the truths no one told us, so you don't have to carry this alone. Welcome back to Born for This Stories. I'm Dr. Johanna, and we have Peter here as well. And we have a very special guest, Dylan, today. And she is going to be telling us about her journey with her young daughter, who's 6.5 months old. Her name is Freya, and she's navigating a congenital abnormality that she was born with. So I'm going to let Dylan hop in and introduce herself and give us a little rundown of what they're experiencing, and we'll go from there.
Hi, my name's Dylan. I'm really happy to be on here. Our daughter Freya, she's 6.5 months old, just a big bundle of joy. So she was born with a congenital limb difference. The medical term is longitudinal radial deficiency with a club hand and hypoplastic thumb. So basically, what it really means is that she was born without her left forearm bones. And then where her elbow would be is where her left hand kind of pops out, and then she doesn't really have like a in quote normal thumb. It's like I don't even know how you would describe it. It's like half a thumb.
Yeah.
I guess you would call it.
Okay.
But yeah, so that's what she was born with, and the journey from when we found out to even today has been quite a long one for sure.
I can imagine.
Yeah, so that's why I am super happy that, I'm able to come on here and talk more about that and just share my story, our story really, and hopefully reach out to other parents who are experiencing, the same kind of thing with children born with limb differences.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was doing a little research and digging into Freya's condition, and it looks like there's like several different what they call types, or I guess like grades of the condition. And what type is she?
So, and here's actually kind of part of the frustration. We have actually never really been told, in quote, a type by
Okay.
any of the medical professionals. Through our own research, it looks like she's type 4, which is like, I
Yeah.
guess you could guess the most severe.
Right.
But what's kind of crazy is that none of the medical providers have actually told us this,
Yeah, that
which
is
is part
crazy.
which is part of the frustration. So through our own research, we found this, but literally our doctors have just said, "Oh, congenital limb difference."
Yeah.
And that's it. Like, we haven't been told a type, we haven't been, and they've done x-rays. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it was literally just, this is what it is, and it's like, okay. So
Yeah.
that's kind of part of the whole frustrating thing, and I'm sure, as you guys are aware of, the whole medical involvement and just, yeah.
Yeah, it gets a little it gets a little gray or muddy for sure. What about in that case then, when did you guys first find out that this was gonna be part of Freya's journey?
So, quick little background. So, and I'm totally, by the way, a totally transparent person here. So, I struggle with anxiety. So when I got pregnant, I was on anxiety medication, which again, my medical providers were like, "That's totally fine. This is not going to affect, the fetus at all. You can totally stay on your medication, but just in case." When you're at your 20-week appointment, we want to send you to a maternal fetal medicine doctor just in case. But literally, there's no problem. It's not going to affect anything.
Okay.
So when we went to that maternal fetal medicine appointment, they were doing the scan just to make sure everything was okay. That's when we got the news. So obviously it was just kind of like a ultrasound tech who was doing everything. And of course she didn't say anything. She just was like, "Oh, I need to go get the doctor." And
Mm,
of course, when you hear that, you're like, "Oh, God, what?"
yeah. Yeah. Then you
And,
spiral, right?
right. And then the doctor comes in, and again, I don't mean to like bash any medical providers, but I mean, his bedside manner, if you will, was very poor.
Yeah.
He comes in and he goes, "Oh, so I just want you to know she is missing her left forearm bones, and this is here." And he showed us a picture. He goes, "You can see it here. And yeah, do you have any questions?" It was literally like that.
Oh my
And
gosh.
yes, my husband and I are looking at each other like, what did we just hear? Like,
Yeah.
what? And he goes, "Well, I'll give y'all a moment to process." And then he walked out the room. It was literally an under a minute interaction.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mm. Uh,
And to say we were shocked was an understatement. I mean, I think at that point, my husband and I were just numb. Like
Sure.
we were just like, what just happened? Like it was so quick, so matter of fact, and here it is, and goodbye. And we were just like, what just happened?
Mm-hmm.
And so we're literally like just numb at this point. And so we walk out of the ultrasound room into the doctor's office, which, by the way, I don't know if he was just like renting the room or what, but it was completely blank. It was just him and a computer and literally nothing, no pictures, no nothing. It was like as if he was just renting a vacant office. It was kind of bizarre. And he just was like, yeah, so here it is. And he showed us a picture on the computer again. And he was just like, well, um, he goes, I don't know if this makes you feel better, but you can consider this a cosmetic issue. That's literally the word he used.
Oh.
And right. And I'm kind of just looking at my husband going, did he just say her
Mm-hmm.
missing forearm bones is a cosmetic issue?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Because this isn't like some botched lip injection. Like this is like she's missing bones in her arm. And I don't know if he was just saying that to like make us feel better. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then so he just sat there and said, do you have any questions? And we're just looking at each other like how do we even form questions right now? We're in a state of shock.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you mean? Do we have questions? And then we just looked at each other and we were just like, no, we don't have any questions. Because again, we were just in such shock.
Yeah.
And what's unfortunate is that my husband and I drove to this appointment separately because we had just left work. So I just remember the drive home because at that point I was like, I'm not going back to work. I remember the drive home. I got to say, it was probably the best autopilot I've ever done because I was so
Mm.
numb. I didn't even know like my surroundings and what was going on. I just drove home in like complete utter silence. And finally, when I got home, like I said, shock was an understatement. I was so devastated to see that our reality was not going to be how we imagined it. And
Yeah.
I remember just going onto the bathroom floor. I locked myself in there. I got home before my husband did, and I locked myself in our bathroom and I just laid on the floor and just bawled my eyes out. And yeah, so
Mm.
yeah, so that's how we found out. So
Ugh.
yeah, a little dramatic, but yeah, it was just so like to this day I just reflect on that whole appointment and I'm just like what was he thinking? like
Uh,
like
yeah.
like it was that was probably one of the worst medical provider experiences I've ever had was
Yeah.
just so nonchalant and cosmetic issue and you have questions, okay, bye. I mean it was just and all of this was under I literally was like under 5 minutes
I
and you
believe
just
it.
delivered this devastating news and just 5 minutes in and out and that was it and then we're left to our own devices to cope with
Mhm.
this. I mean
Yeah. Oh, I know. And then when you're left with that and you're like, okay, I have to go home and I have to like research these terms and figure out all this stuff. And then you go and like basically open Pandora's box.
yes. Yes.
And
Yeah, opening Pandora's box is like I mean, I literally, because at that point, you start the research for, what this means, but then the guilt sets in, the resentment
oh,
sets
yeah.
in. So, what did I do? Was it because I was on anxiety meds? So, the guilt, the shame, the blame. I mean, and to this day, even though she's 6.5 months old, I still feel that guilt and feel resentment, not towards her, obviously, but just towards the whole
Yeah.
situation and our experience. And I because I'm her first home. That's how I kept viewing it. I'm her first
Right.
home and somehow I've done something to make her unsafe in the
Right.
womb. And like I said, to this day I still struggle with it. I mean, I still there are moments when I just look at her and I just feel like such shame and blame, not on her but me. Like what could I have done differently? Like was and I almost feel like I was selfish in a way. I was like, man, did I really need these anxiety meds? Were these anxiety meds what made this happen? Like, could I have just not survived without anxiety med? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like all of this never ending circle of blame and shame
For
constantly
sure.
floods me.
Yeah, and I just want to validate that because like obviously like our experience is different, but like I still have all of those similar feelings as well. And even to this day, like our son is he just turned 3 and I still there's times I look at him and I'm just like, I mean, I love him so much, but I'm like, what did I do to like cause this to happen to him? And I've worked around that a lot, but I don't know if that feeling ever fully goes away. So I definitely like you are not alone in those feelings. Like I'm sure you know that, but I just want to validate that. Um, and also I'm sure that you know, like no matter what, like you did the best that you could, and that is very important to also realize and acknowledge.
Yeah, and it's just been such a it's just been such a long journey, and I
Oh
feel
yeah.
like we're only scratching the surface here because
Yeah.
obviously when we found that out, they were like, okay, you have to come back again to this same doctor, which I was like, yay.
Oh,
um, we have to come back for all these clearances because now that she has a limb difference, okay, are her organs developing
Right.
correctly? Are her other limbs developing correctly? So it turned into this what I thought was going to be an in quote smooth pregnancy to now we have to go every weekly for an ultrasound. They have to do all these cardiac scans. And this is while she's still in the womb, all these
Right.
kidney scans. I mean, just to make sure her organs are fully developed. So it just basically turned our world and what we thought our first pregnancy was upside down. Made the
Oh,
whole experience just like, yeah.
for sure. I mean, we have this vision, and when it doesn't happen, that is very hard, especially going down the path that you guys had to go down. Can I ask you, did you guys ever consider, I mean, obviously not getting a second opinion because, the information was there, but did you ever consider like changing providers and seeing if there was someone else that was just a little bit more like empathetic?
Well, and see, and this is kind of what's crazy is because, this is so I have employer insurance, right?
Hmm.
And this is where I hate the whole thought of like insurance and because they limit you and the providers you can see. And this particular maternal fetal medicine doctor was the only doctor in his specialty
Hmm.
that we could see because the other one I think was in Tampa or something, and we live in St. Pete. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to drive all the way to Tampa
Yep.
to and from to get more devastating news. So,
Right.
so it limited us. So our insurance, limited us to who, we could see, and so that's why I relied on a lot of my own research. I actually have a half sister who's a physician assistant in California who works with surgeons of kids with limb differences. So I was like, getting her opinion on things. I was sending her, the ultrasound pictures and I was trying to get her feedback, so I was trying to reach out to everyone I could, without having to change providers. But I was so glad the day they were like, okay, you don't have to come back to us anymore. Because thankfully, in the ultrasound, they were like, yeah, it looks like her organs are normal and she doesn't have
Good.
any other limb differences. So I was kind of like, thank God.
Yeah. Yeah. Ugh.
throughout any of those follow-up appointments, did were you able to settle in? Did they talk to you more about things, or were they kind of cold and short the whole time and just you were self-reliant on what information you could find about everything?
Completely self reliant, which is the
Yeah,
bizarro
that's
thing
frustrating.
because after I was done seeing the maternal fetal medicine, you go to your regular OBGYN or whatever for your regular ultrasounds. And what it was so bizarre is that not once did any of my gyno or OBGYN mention anything about the limb difference. I mean,
Wow.
it was as if they didn't even know. So every time I would go in for my weekly ultrasound, the tech would be looking at my stomach and I'm like, hey, just so you know, I am aware she has a limb difference, just in case you see that. And she was like, oh, okay. But yeah, no one not ever mentioned it. Even when I was giving birth in the hospital, no one mentioned it. And I actually had to bring it up to the, delivery team. I was like, hey, I just want everyone to be aware. I am aware there's a limb difference. So if she comes out, I am aware. Like it was crazy. Like not one person in my entire whole pregnancy journey mentioned it. And I thought it was the most bizarre thing. Like no one touched base on it. No one said, hey, we got your maternal fetal medicine results. We're so sorry. Like nothing. It was just as if it didn't even exist. It was the most bizarre experience.
That blows my mind.
Yeah.
Is it like, I wonder what the thought process is. I wonder if it's like, okay, well, like, we just don't want to talk about it. It's like the elephant in the room, but we're just not going to talk about it. But at the same time, like you already knew, you're doing the research on your own. What if these providers were able to like walk you through the process and say like, "Hey, I understand, this is going on. It's not optimal, but like these are some supports. This is some action steps that you can take to prep yourself for when your baby does come and is here." But I'm assuming none of that happened.
No, none of that happened. And even when with our last appointment with the maternal fetal medicine doctor, I even said, hey, I was like, I know with like HIPAA, you can't like give us names or anything. I was like, but if y'all come across any other parents and you've, with child with limb differences, please feel free to share our information. Like I would like to, you know, build that community. And the doctor was just like, okay. I mean, he didn't even like write anything down. He didn't,
Right.
and I was just like, okay, thanks. Like, it was just like, yeah, the whole experience was just so bizarre. And and they're great. And like my OBGYN team and everything, they're kind people. It's not like they were bad providers, but the
Right.
fact they never mentioned the limb difference, never mentioned support avenues, never mentioned like, hey, this is what your birthing process is going to look like with a child with a limb difference. Like, hey, we're going to probably want to take her to the NICU just to make sure everything, like nothing, none of that
Right.
was discussed. And then when she was born, sure enough, they took her and they immediately took her to the NICU, and they did that without warning. And I was just like, okay, where is she going? They're like, oh, we just want to take her to the NICU to make sure her, everything's okay. Her lungs are developed. And I'm just like, and this was all as I just gave birth.
Mm. Yeah.
Was
Yeah.
there any time throughout your pregnancy that you were able to kind of accept and understand where you were with this, or was it not until after she was born, or when did you kind of come to terms with it and find some sort of peace and not just so many questions going through your head and having no comfort inside of your mind at all?
So obviously it took a while. But I would say a couple weeks after we found out, I finally, after again doing my own research, I actually ended up getting with a therapist because I was like, oh my God, I need therapy at this point. So I got with a
Yeah.
therapist, and I actually found my own support groups. But again, this was like all self research, which to me is like, I'm an independent person, I can do that, but it would have been nice to have like kind of like a guideline of
Right.
like, hey, but I did find a lot of support groups. Again, not none of them local, which is another frustrating thing. But there is a great support group called Lucky Finn Project. It's a Facebook group, and I did get hooked up with that, and that is when kind of the table started to turn for me because I was seeing all these parents with kids with limb differences and seeing how well they were, adapting and things like that. So that is when things started to take a turn for me as far as accepting it more. Um, but again, it's still a struggle, even though like right now I can say I've accepted it, which obviously I have. She's here and I love her. It's still a struggle. It's still a struggle, but I did finally come to terms with it probably a couple weeks after we found out, especially after we got the news that it appeared that her organs were normal. There were no other limb differences. So we got over that scary hump of like, okay, is something else going to be wrong? So after we got over that hump, I think is when we finally started to settle in and be like, okay, everything's going to be okay. There's nothing else wrong, and
Yeah.
this is an in quote cosmetic issue, which still blows my mind that he
Mm.
used those words.
I know.
Like it makes me almost laugh because I'm just like, that's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. That's
I mean, I remember that exact feeling for us too,
mm,
though, is I was like, okay, I know what we're dealing with, but is there anything else
additional.
developmentally
Mm.
that we have to worry about? And when you know your child is safe and healthy overall, there's just a difference that's, like you said, quote unquote, cosmetic. It starts to become a little bit easier because as challenging as a cosmetic issue could be, mental disorders and all kinds of other things, and heart disorders and lung disorders can be, even much worse than that.
Yeah, and we're like struggling with, because this was just when she was in the womb, because when she was born we still had to go through all those clearances all over again because
Right.
they wanted to see development after she was born. So it was like we had to hit the start over button with all the worries and fears because like they were like, okay, yeah, in the womb she looks great, but now that she's out of the womb, we want to send you to a cardiologist, we want to send you to a kidney ultrasound, we want to send you. And so it was like it started all over again.
Yeah.
And obviously when we went to those appointments, she was so tiny, she was only a month old, they had to like strap her down to,
Yeah.
she was wiggling around, they had to strap her down to like these medical bed things. And oh my God, seeing your baby strapped down and then they just start crying is like,
The
it
worst.
was it was it was horrible. It was
Yeah.
horrible. Like I had never felt so just helpless in my whole life, just seeing
Yes.
this little baby strapped down so they can, so she's not moving, so they can do these scans and everything appropriately. But that was, yeah, I don't even have the words. Just seeing your little
Mm.
infant just strapped to a medical table. I mean, and she's crying, and you can't do anything because like you
Yeah.
can't interfere with the scan. Yeah, it's so nerve-wracking.
Oh yeah, for sure. There's just those memories, there's no coming back from that one. You know, they will be imprinted that way, unfortunately. And I'm assuming through all of those scans, everything came out good.
Yes, yes. Thankfully, she was cleared cardiac wise, I guess, but there was some, I don't even remember the term. They were just saying, apparently it's pretty common. They were just saying, hey, if she ever wants to go deep sea scuba diving, make sure she gets cleared by a doctor first, because there was something about a valve and, if it goes in both ways. I don't know. So, moral of the story, all I heard was she's okay. That's all I
Yeah.
cared about.
Yeah, for sure.
and and then she got her kidney ultrasounds, and which apparently, again, I didn't know this, but when you have a limb difference, it is also, for whatever reason, common to have problems with your kidneys, which I was like, I don't know how that connects, but that was something that just dropped on our plate. And I was like, oh, okay. Because I kind of was like, why do we need a kidney ultrasound? And they were like,
Hmm.
oh. And I was just like, oh, well, thank you for the info, I guess. But yes, everything was clear. So right now, the only thing I guess we're in quote worried about is just making sure she's going to be meeting certain milestones, because obviously
Right.
with her limb difference, crawling is going to be an issue.
Yeah.
And crawling obviously is a huge milestone because it builds those neural pathways cognitively. So that was probably
Yeah.
our biggest fear right now, is how is this limb difference going to affect her cognitive development, neural development? Like, how is it going to affect just her overall development? Because, as babies, those things are very key to making sure they're meeting their milestones. And so that's like our current anxiety and struggle. Is she going to be able to meet those milestones just because she's inhibiting her ability to crawl? Because it's so
Yeah.
important for them to crawl. And it's just like,
Yeah, for sure. What has your path been since she's been here? Like, what have you had to do any therapies, like PT, anything like
oh,
that?
yeah. Oh, yeah. So we do weekly OT with
Mhm.
her, which I love our OT. Like, I have nothing bad to say against them. However, of course, I feel like there's always room for improvement, especially in the medical perspective, because we get OT in the hospital. One of the things that the OT had mentioned to us, which again, I just kind of blows my mind. But again, nothing against her. She's great.
Yeah.
It was just one of those little tidbit things where I'm like, huh, okay. So I had mentioned to the OT, I was like, yeah, we don't really see representation out in the community. And I was telling her, like, hey, I get really sad when we're out, like at the grocery store, and or the community, and we see no kids with limb differences. It's just kind of very isolating feeling. And I wish there was more representation out there to see, kids with limb differences. And she just was like, well, of course you won't see this out in the community. This is a rare anomaly. And
Uh, thank you for
you're
that.
right. Right. And I just kind of, it just threw me off. Like, it actually made me really kind of angry. Because it was just, I mean, she wasn't saying it to be like mean, but it was just kind
Yeah.
of like, it just kind of took me aback. I was just kind of like, okay. I mean, yes, I get it that this is like, not in quote normal, but I mean, just for you to be like, well, yeah, you're not going to see it out there. I mean, this isn't an all. I mean, she just said it so like curtly, and I was just kind of like, okay,
Mm.
maybe, in my mind, and again, maybe it's just because I'm a social worker, so I come from this background of like community empathy. Like, I felt like that would have been a great opportunity to be like, but you know I do work with kiddos with limb different, I mean, I felt like it could
Yeah.
have gone a whole lot differently than just saying, yeah, you're never going to see this, of course not. And it was
I
just
know.
like,
And did
okay.
she not have any other patients that have ever had a limb
And
difference?
she has, because I straight up asked her, I'm like, well, have, and she goes, well, yeah. And I'm like, okay. So I just felt like that would have been an amazing opportunity to be like, hey, but I do work. They are out there. And, if you ever want to leave your information, I can get you hooked up with these family. I just felt like there was such a huge opportunity there
Yeah.
to segue into, here, this is how we can support you in your feeling, because I was trying to, express to her how it's isolating to go to the store and you literally, there's no one with limb differences. Not that I expect, there to be a huge, group of people with limb differences constantly, but it's just one of those things you really tend to notice when you're out in public.
Yeah.
And it's something that I never would have thought of noticing before, but you just become super attuned to it. It's kind of like when you get a Toyota, you start seeing Toyotas everywhere kind of
Yeah.
thing. So,
Yep.
so that was kind of the thing. Like, I was just so super hyper aware that there weren't anybody that I was seeing, especially kids with limb differences. And so I was just trying to express that to her. And she's like, of course you're not. I'm like, oh, well, okay.
Another nice thing for you to say.
Yeah.
Very helpful.
Right.
Like,
Right. I was like, wow, I mean, but that was like the only instance where I've been kind of like, but other than
Yeah.
that, her OT really is fantastic. I mean, she's working really well with Freya. So I don't really have any complaints. I think there's just might be they work in such a lens of a medical lens that they don't really often practice in the social communal empathetic lens like me as a
Sure.
social worker does. So like I try to
Sure.
tell myself that I'm like, Dylan, she doesn't come from the same, lens and background you do. Maybe that's why that didn't occur to her
Yeah.
to say.
Yeah, I understand. I definitely feel like too, like with being in the holistic community with my profession, that kind of stuff. Like when we had our son, we did a midwife, so it was helpful because she did pass my information along to other families that their sons were born with the same condition. And I was grateful for that because then I could provide the support, that I was craving and looking for when we were going through this. I can just imagine that if I had an OB going in there and be like, "Hey, would you like, hey, save my information?" Like, I mean, I know this is going to happen again, and I'm sure that mom will need support. They probably, of course, would have done the same thing. So,
well, I feel like
Yeah.
there were multiple times throughout your story so far that if somebody would have mentioned somebody to talk to or a therapist that specializes in this, there were multiple opportunities for that to be placed in front of you,
right.
but you were left on your own.
Exactly. And what's crazy is that our pediatrician actually referred us to an orthopedic doctor who specializes in upper limb differences.
Hmm.
And even when we go to those appointments, again, I'm not saying he's a bad doctor, he's actually really kind. But even when we go to this guy who is a specialist in this field, there's not one mention of,
Hmm.
if anything, it's kind of weird because when we go in there, we're kind of always so wrapped up and concerned about her that when we go in there, he goes, okay, like the first appointment we went in there, he was like, okay, yep, I see x-rays. Yep, she has a limb difference. Do you have any questions? And we're kind of like, just because we don't, in the moment, we don't have any questions really,
Yeah.
because we're kind of just so worried and occupied with her that our minds are just running blank, you know?
Right. Right.
And it would have been nice if the provider was like, well, these are some typical questions I get from other families,
Yeah.
and instead of just going, okay, well, no questions, goodbye, because we don't have questions in that moment because we were just so concerned about her and, what, seeing the x-ray, like, what does this look like? That again, that would have been another nice way for the doctor to be like, well, these are questions I usually get from parents, or hey, this is what I can expect to see, and this is what it might look like. This is what her function might look like. Because to this day, she's 6.5 months old, and we don't know what her function is going to look like in the future per se.
Sure.
Like we don't know that, and we're 6.5 months in now. So yeah, it would have just been nice if they have that understanding that parents are going to be like so concerned and wrapped up in the moment that they may not be able to even process anything or even have questions in that moment. So it would have been nice for the provider to be like, well, these are typical questions we get, and I
Yeah,
felt like that would have been nice to have, but
for
we didn't
sure.
get that.
I agree. I agree with you. I think too, like, I mean, this is your first time being a mom. Like, even if everything was like perfect, you still have all those concerns in your mind as your child's in that first year and they can't communicate with you. And you're like, are they going to hit these milestones? Are they okay? They can't tell me. And then now we put in something else that makes it that we know that can be a bit challenging with milestones and they need therapy and things like that. So to process that is difficult because again, they can't communicate with you, right? So you can try your best at watching them, but to have that support of like, this is our experience, this is what the other parents have gone through, this is what you could expect. I think having that expectation set, even if you fall above or below it or even in line, is super helpful or would be super helpful.
Exactly. Like it just astounds me that how is it that social and community involvement is not part of a patient's treatment plan?
Right.
Like that should be not just like, okay, we're going to get x-rays and then we'll monitor and we'll see you back in 6 months. Like that was essentially like the treatment plan.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how? And of course, he did mention, he's like, there are support groups, you can look into that, but it was pretty much it. But like, I just was like, how is there not more involvement? Like, hey, just so you know, since I am a specialist in this area, I see a bunch of kiddos, and then my experience, this is the events they go. Like, I just don't understand how none of that kind of discussion is part of a patient's treatment plan.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that needs to be part of their treatment plan. I mean, as a social worker, I look at patients like community involvements and their psychosocial issues with their families, their environment.
Yes.
I mean, I that's a part of their treatment plan. So it's just kind of astounding to me how with these medical providers, that portion is not a part of a patient's treatment plan.
Right. Right. I wonder sometimes, like, just like internally, like in my own thought process, like, is it because like we're dealing with like infants and babies, but at the same time, like those infants and babies are going to grow into toddlers and young children and teenagers. And so how do we set them up for success from that like mental health standpoint? Because I think that should be invested in the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And also just looking at the mental health of, hello, the parents too.
Yes.
Like,
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
yeah, because I feel like, again, if these little things were just tweaked, I feel like my husband and I would even be in a better mental health standing than we are today. Because a lot of it has been we've had to do a lot of ourselves, which, we're, again, that's fine. We're
Yeah.
adults, we understand that.
Yep.
But it would have been super helpful and supportive knowing that we had a team who was also invested in the parents' mental health and like what are the parents also going through.
Yeah.
And what, as the family unit, right? Just looking at the family unit and including the family unit in a treatment plan, I think would have made a whole world of a difference.
Agreed. I definitely feel you on that. With the groups that you're part of or that you found online, like I know you mentioned one in particular, so I'd like to hear more about that. But were you also able to get some information? Are any of them like groups that meet up like at a convention that you could go and like really see other parents and kiddos in
Yes.
person? Tell me
Yes.
all the details.
Yes. Yes. So that is, I will say, something that has been pretty awesome. It's called Lucky Finn Project, and it's basically all over the country essentially, but there is like an in quote local Florida chapter of that as well that we joined. Unfortunately, nothing in the Tampa Bay area
Yeah,
right now.
which is crazy because it's huge.
Maybe we can change that, right?
I was gonna say maybe you can kickstart that, Dylan.
Yeah, maybe we can change that. So it just so happened that I kid you not, 10 days after Freya was born, we learned that there was a camp in, I think it was like Plant City or somewhere like, a little far, but,
Yeah.
still within driving range.
Yeah.
And it's a camp called Camp No Limits. And it's a camp just for kiddos with limb differences. And I was like, oh my God, we should go.
Mm-hmm.
And we got hooked up with someone who was like a sponsor of it. And, because I was like, I don't want to intrude. She's only 10 days old. I mean, these are kind of for, and they were like,
Yeah.
no, come and join. And so yeah, Freya was only 10 days old, but sure enough, we went there, and by far she was the youngest participant there.
I love it.
At 10 days old. But we went there and just to see all those kids with limb differences. And then there was actually like a meeting just for parents to kind of discuss their struggles and everything. I was just like, yes, this is what we need.
Yeah.
But come to find out that most of the people there were from out of state and they just traveled there for the camp. And I was like, dang, there's like no one local. Come on.
I bet there are. I think you have to dig. You got to pull.
Yeah, I mean, there was actually one person there who was local, and I actually ended up giving her my phone number and everything. But
I love that.
but that was kind of the frustrating thing, and I was like, yes, we need more of this locally. And
Yeah.
but then I was talking to other parents, they're like, oh yeah, I'm from Minnesota. Oh yeah, I drove here from Virginia, and I'm like, oh. So that
Everyone from Florida.
Right, but it was the fact that this camp happened to be hosted here this year. I don't know more about it. I don't know if they like have different areas where they host it. Just so happened to be within the area this year. So yeah, that was really cool to go to, and I think going to that was a bit of a turnaround for us too. Just seeing, like, we were seeing what I was telling the OT that I felt like I wasn't seeing in the community. Like we were in it. We were seeing every person there. Even there were adults there with limb difference because they had counselors there, and there were adults with limb differences, and seeing how well they had succeeded in life. And so
Mm.
yeah, that was a big turning point for us as far as even accepting this whole situation even more.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad that you did that. Even when, I mean, she was so young, but that's good for,
Yeah,
especially a family unit.
everyone kind of thought I was a little crazy because again, I had just given birth 10 days prior and I was up and at this camp, and I was like, I'm like, it's worth it though. I don't care. I was like, I want, if something like this is in the area, I'm going to be there.
Yeah.
10 days old or not, 10 days postpartum, I'm going.
Yeah. You have to
Yeah.
do what's right for your mental health too. And like sometimes it is things like that inside those moments, and that's totally fine.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, people were looking at me like, you just gave birth 10 days ago. I was like, heck yeah. And I'm here because I want to, this is a once in a lifetime chance. I don't know when this group or camp is going to be coming back. So yeah,
Yeah.
you bet your bippy I'm going to be there. So
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. It's interesting how things pan out like that sometimes, for
yeah,
sure.
so that was really cool, I will say. And the whole, like I said, support group has been very helpful. Again, I just kind of wish there was something more local, but again, maybe that's something I can, do. I don't know. But yeah, no, that I definitely for anyone out there listening with kids with limb differences, definitely recommend Lucky Fen Project. They're on Facebook, Instagram. They're super, it's a super great community, and you just see parents posting pictures of their kids and how well they're, adjusting and adapting, and it's very cool.
Oh, I love that. I'm going to reach out to them.
Yeah. No, that's awesome.
Yeah,
Um,
no, they're really cool. And it's funny because the Lucky Fin project, it's all based on like Finding Nemo. Like, how Nemo has the
Oh,
little fin.
yeah. Yeah.
that's cool. I
So
didn't realize that.
yeah, that's like the Nemo is like their mascot. So
Oh,
that's why it's called Lucky Fin Project. And how so it's super cute. But
yeah. Love it.
So, other than those groups that you had found throughout this whole journey, what helped you and your family cope with all of this that you went through and are going through, and what got you through some of the hardest parts? What resources or family or what was it that, got you
honestly,
out of bed every day
family,
and had a positive attitude?
family for sure. 110%. Like I remember, the day we found out and I was on the bathroom floor, locked in there crying. My husband actually called my mom, and my mom, thankfully both our parents live here, his parents, my parents. Um, my mom rushed straight over and she just held me like I was a little baby,
Yeah.
because I was pretty much inconsolable. And she, held me and just said, everything's going to be okay. She's still perfect. You know, we're going to make sure she has everything she needs. Don't you worry. We're here for you.
Mm.
Will. And so having that support has been, and still to this day, like, my husband and I both work full time, and both our parents watch the baby daily. Like his mom does the morning shift and my mom does the afternoon shift. So they split it every day.
Oh,
Yeah, but they do all of her OT exercises, because obviously we get homework to do, and
yeah.
they do it with her during the day. So having that family support, I mean, to be honest, I don't know if I could have done this without the family support.
Yep.
And so we're just so thankful and blessed that they are local. Um, yeah, that's probably what made the difference, is just hearing that constant positive validation from like my mom specifically, and just hearing her say, it doesn't matter. I'm here for you. I'm here for her. She's gonna, be, the light. And she was, because she's been wanting to be a grandma since I was like 18 years old. So this was like who she was meant to be. So she's like,
Yeah.
I don't care if she's a purple giraffe. I'm just gonna be happy she's here. um
Love it.
and so having that validation from my mom, and the fact that she just ran straight over to coddle me, and just in my time of need, meant the world. And I don't even know if she knows that how much it meant to me,
Yeah.
because I tell her, but it was that moment that I knew. Of course I was devastated, but that was the starting point of, I knew I was going to be okay. We were going to be okay because we did have that support.
Yeah.
um, so even though I love the support group, Lucky Fin Project, and all that, I would probably say our family support is by far the biggest impact and biggest contributor towards where we are today, as far as further accepting and feeling okay with this. Is definitely family for sure.
Oh, I love that. It is helpful to have that support for sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot. If you could offer any advice to anybody else going through something similar, um, what can you tell us what that would be? And for all the families walking similar paths, what can you tell them if they're just starting their journey or, early on in their journey?
Practice self-compassion. I mean, because again, with us, I mean, me specifically, being the one who carried her and all that, I am constantly battling with the guilt and resentment and shame. But in those moments, I do have to remind myself to give myself some slack, give myself some
Yeah.
compassion and just normalize these feelings because, I often, again, I still feel isolated. I still have those feelings. It's a daily struggle. So just, I would just tell, people out there, just normalize those feelings. Yes, they're kind of icky and they're uncomfortable to have, but they're important to
Yeah.
have. Just because it's part of the whole process and it's totally normal to have those feelings. And that's something I've had to, work with my therapist on because I was telling her, I don't want to feel resentful and angry. Why, why do I feel like this, and, why everyone else like on social media looks so happy and content. And here I am like not happy and content. And she was just
Mhm.
like, well, Dylan, those are, the typical, those are just the highlights you see on social media. You can't base your journey off there, what you're seeing little snippets of,
Right.
so I just normalize it, give yourself some self-compassion and give yourself a break. That's probably the biggest thing I can say is just don't feel like you're out of the norm or what you're experiencing is not normal or something to be shameful of. That's something that I'm currently working on with my therapist is not feeling ashamed of these feelings and normalizing them because I think a lot more people experience these feelings more than we think they do.
Yes.
Even if there wasn't a child with any sort of limb difference or any sort of medical issue, like I feel like as new parents, you feel that exhaustion, or you feel that guilt of like I just want to break. You know what I mean? Regardless if there's a medical issue, like you are feeling some type of way, and I just would recommend people normalizing that and just give yourself some compassion.
Yeah. I love that. I think it's powerful and so true.
Yes. And it's constantly a thing you work on. It's not something that overnight, okay, bam, I'm over it,
Yeah.
everything's fine. It is a daily journey and it's a daily thing. And just
Yeah.
give yourself grace daily.
Yeah.
Because it's unfortunately, especially if you have a child with a limb difference or any medical issue, you're not going to wake up and boom, everything's fine and gone. It's just not going to
Mhm.
happen. So learning to accept that, accept the journey you're in, take it one day at a time, however you want to interpret it, just give yourself some grace and normalize your feelings.
Yes. Love that. So good. Any?
Is
Yeah.
there anything else about your story and your family's story and Freya's story that you feel like we haven't covered, and anything that you want to share with anybody that might be listening?
Um, well, if there's anyone out there in the Tampa Bay area with a kid with a limb difference, feel free to hit me up.
Yes.
um, or
Yeah.
it doesn't even have to be limb difference, any medical issue. I just feel like the reason why I was so keen on jumping on here is because I really want to be involved in building that community. And that's why I am just so thankful you guys are doing this because it is a difficult path. And there is, as obviously from y'all's experience and my experience, there is not a lot of in quote support
Yep.
in the medical field, which again, nothing against the doctors, they're very knowledgeable and all that, but I feel like having things like this is what makes a difference for families. And that's why I'm so thankful you guys let me come on here and share our story because it can get isolating, and so it's nice to be on here and just share our story. And that's one of the things I want to teach Freya, my daughter, is we're not ashamed of you, right? We want to
Yeah.
share our story. I'm totally one of those people where I'm completely transparent about my life, and I want to show her that we're doing everything we can to support her and build that community. And if that means coming on a podcast to share our story, then absolutely, we're going to do everything we can to take that on for her and make sure she has everything that she needs to be successful and just not feel ashamed about her difference.
Absolutely. And I feel like too, like we're obviously been evolving over time and we're really coming up, especially for her generation, an era where like you can contain and just get as much information as you want off the internet, like through podcasts, like social groups and all of that. So it's like put the information out there so as they get older, they can find a healthy, supportive community. And then hopefully, like you said, like, I mean, I thought the same thing when you were talking. I'm like, well, maybe we just don't have like a limb disorder group, but maybe we just have like a medically like children's group that other parents and caregivers can come to support themselves because the stories are the same. The isolation is the same, no matter what the bottom line condition is. And I'm just here to help support and help them feel
Exactly.
validated and better.
Exactly. Exactly. And I feel like a lot of parents, especially if they're in the beginning stages like we are,
Hmm.
you got a lot of fears about the future. Like
Yeah.
immediately, again, when we found out about the limb difference, I just went 10 miles ahead in the future of like, oh God, how is she going to
Yes.
play an instrument? Oh God, how is she going to play a sport? Oh God, is she going to get bullied? Like I literally went into this catastrophic mindset of
Yeah.
like the future. And she's only 6.5 months old, but
I
I was
know.
already thinking about, is she going to be bullied? If she wants to play tennis, how is that going to look?
Hmm.
But that is where the Lucky Finn project actually was really helpful for us because a lot of people post pictures of their kids with limb differences playing tennis or
Yeah.
play an instrument. They just
Love
have to
it.
adapt. They just have to do things differently, of course, and learn to adapt.
Yeah.
But I also saw the stories of like, oh, well, my kid was bullied. What is some advice? And I was like, oh God. And so that
Yeah.
fear of the future, um, it's there. And that's why I feel like, getting involved now while she's young, obviously really young,
Yeah.
is really going to start building that resilience for her and her learning and getting the tools as early as we can to be resilient when those obstacles come up. Because they're
Yes.
going to. And that's
Yep.
something I've had to learn to accept that unfortunately, when we go out in public, there will probably be stares. There will be questions from other kids or even parents, maybe. And that is something we're going to have to learn to conquer, which I'm
Mhm.
not going to lie, I'm kind of terrified about.
Yeah.
Just because I don't know how I'm going to react when there's a kid, I can just imagine a scenario, a kid on the playground. Why does she have a shorter arm? You know what I
Mhm.
mean? I don't know
Yeah.
how I'm going to react to that. And so that's why starting now, like at 6.5 months old, starting now, building the community now. So that way she has all the tools to be resilient. That is like our main goal.
Yes. Love it.
If there's anybody that does want to reach out to you, do you have an email address that you'd like to state? Otherwise, we can put something down in the show notes and stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. So my email is dmpepper@outlook.com. So please feel free to email. Yeah, y'all feel free to share my email. And yeah, I really hope that maybe either myself or you guys or someone in the community can maybe create that space like in person or Zoom, however, because I know people are still kind of, with COVID and everything, but just create that space for parents, to get together, especially in the Tampa Bay area. Yeah, because I was kind of shocked that in this area, which we're pretty huge, it's a pretty big
Yeah.
area.
Yeah.
There's nothing that I could find. I'm not saying it's not out there, but nothing that I could find
Yeah.
that had these in-person get-togethers or meetings, and so.
Yeah. Well, we have some brainstorming to do as well.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I think there's still an innate like emotion or something that a lot of parents have that they, because I did it myself and I know exactly how it felt to just contract and go inwards and not want to be out and share. Like it sounded like from day one you wanted to. I was the opposite where I wanted to get through our journey and never talk about it again.
But I
Uh,
was like Dylan because I found a support group for hypospadias like right away. Similar, they actually had a meeting scheduled in Orlando out of everywhere to be. It was in Orlando. People were flying in from all over the world, like not just America, like all over. And I think Silas was like a month old. And I'm like, we're going. I don't care. Like, we're going. He can't talk. He can't move, but like, we're going to connect with other parents. And that is whatever year that was, one of the hurricanes came through and hit Orlando that weekend really bad. So they ended
Oh,
up canceling
geez.
it. So we never actually made it. And yeah, so that I think that sometimes like what would it have been like to been around other people and other kiddos with this condition like so early on, like that I feel like that would have brought some more peace. And then of course there was just all this unknown of like, oh, this hurricane came in and it canceled it. And like, now we can't go and I don't have these answers. And
Yeah. No, I see that side obviously
yeah.
as well. And I think if
Yeah.
I had met other parents that were dealing with it or were further along in the journey and told us like, yeah, it's really hard, but this is what's going to happen and this is what it's going to be like, it probably would have brought a lot of comfort. But
Yeah.
I was, like I said, I didn't talk to friends or even all of my family about things. I just kind of contracted and kept it to myself for
Well, totally to validate you. I was like that in like the very beginning because I just wanted to pretend it didn't happen. Like it was,
Right.
and I think that's just kind of like that first stage of shock. Like, no, it's not happening.
Mhm.
But for me, I was like, no, it's happening. And she's going to physically have a limb difference that for all the world to see. So there is no, pretending it's not there.
Right.
And so when I came to that realization that like there is no hiding it, it's not gonna be something that we can just, put a jacket on and no one will know the wiser. So that was like, okay, we have to get out of our comfort zone for her. So she doesn't feel like, we're trying to hide it or we're ashamed. And so that was one of the other things we had to come to terms with, like that it is not one of those things that, oh, you can hide, or like it's just, like you have a mental disorder that no one can't see. Like everyone is going to see her limb difference and there's no hiding it. So it was a learning curve for my husband and I, because we like to think of ourselves as introverted people anyways. So we don't have a big friend group. We have like one or two friends and that's about it. And they don't even live here.
Yeah.
So we knew this was going to have to be a big adjustment for us, because there is no hiding her difference. And so for her to best support her, we both knew we were going to have to get out there regardless of our introverted selves and our social anxieties. We're going to have to get out there.
Yeah.
So I totally validate you. We were kind of like that, like, because I think we were just in denial, like the stages of grief, just in denial. And so, but yeah, unfortunately for us, it's like, no, there's no hiding it. And so we just have to come to terms with that.
Yep.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much.
Oh, yes. Thank you. No, thank you guys for, again, just starting this journey. And again, as soon as I heard about it, I was like, I'm on it. I want on it.
Love it. That's what we want.
I know. Exactly. And because it is important. It's important. And I know. So if anything, thank you guys for, having this space to hold parents and like me, like others, so we all, I think we can speak for everyone, listening to your stories. We appreciate you guys.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. Well, we're all good here. I appreciate it. If you need anything, you just let us know. Reach out.
Well, okay. Well, I'll see you next week, Dr. Joanne.
Yeah. Look forward to it.
All right. Thank you guys so much for having me. I really appreciate it. This was great. And this was therapeutic within itself. So
beautiful. I love that. Cool. Well, I hope you guys have a good weekend. Yes.
Absolutely. You guys too. Thank you so much.
Yep. Bye.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us for today's conversation on Born for This Stories. If this episode resonated with you, we'd love for you to take one simple step. Share it with a friend, another parent, or a caregiver who might need to know they are not alone in this journey. Make sure you are subscribed so you will never miss an episode. We release new stories every Monday. And if you're looking for more connection, resources, or ways to share your own story, come join us on Instagram at Born for This Stories, or visit our website at bornthisstories.com. Remember, whatever part of the journey you're in, the waiting room, the recovery, or the in-between, you do not have to carry it alone. We see you, we stand with you, and never forget, you were born for this.